Hey, okay. We are live on Facebook and YouTube. Hello, everybody. I hope all is well. So on Facebook, just want to let you guys know I got my phone turned sideways so that it can charge during this because I'm on low battery. So I hope that's okay. To YouTube, we're continuing on with Think and Grow Rich, read by me. I'll be pausing briefly to talk about whatever comes to my mind as we read it. We are on, I believe it is episode 16, 15 or 16. I'm pretty sure it's 16. We are going to be continuing on the chapter of the mystery of sex transmutation. So, last time when I was on live, we talked about this like idea of the genius, right? And I know this chapter was on sex transmutation. That may turn a lot of people away. Like, what is he talking about by this? However, this was an underdog chapter in Think and Grow Rich in the sense that it it really went forward with undeveloped or developing your genius, and we had a cool definition of the genius. If I could remember, I think the genius is when you're able to get into a state of mind that is ramping up so high that you attract thoughts that you could not normally attract at your baseline state. I believe that's what the lines of a genius were. And that was pretty cool because in our mastermind group, we talk a lot about state of mind, and how state is everything. And it's cool when you see a bunch of things tying in together with one another. And that's what is happening here. So I want you guys to just keep in mind what I'm learning right now is that state is everything. And I don't know why it's everything. I don't know how it's everything, but I just know state is the almighty thing that you can focus on. And I'll hopefully dive deeper into what state means as I continue on with these lives because it's some powerful stuff. So before I get started in reading, I want to introduce myself. My name is Michael Music. I am currently 22 years old. I decided to take on the task of teaching and reading and creating a group discussion around the book Think and Grow Rich. This book was something that I've been studying for the past 3 years. And I had a mentor of mine who has studied this for 60 years and he has taught it. And I was thinking maybe there's something about this book that's worth teaching. And that's why I was like, okay, I'll start my own show. I'll just go live uh, every weekday. And on the weekends, I apologize, I didn't go live this weekend. I need to actually fill up a time on when I dedicate to going live and really stay disciplined to it because I do want to go live every day. Um, but with that being said, like my intent was let's go live every day, just reading this book. I will let you guys know some housekeeping that I do want to do more than just read Think and Grow Rich. I don't want to be known as just that Think and Grow Rich guy. However, for the time being, we're going to dive deep into this book. I don't think I'm going to do like I'll do other videos and stuff, but I don't think I'm gonna do anything else on the live until I get through Think and Grow Rich at least 10 times. That is my goal to start. I actually have a mentor of mine, his name's Sean, and he does a call where he's done over 1,000 episodes. And luckily, I still got a lot of time under my I'm only 22, so I'm gonna want to get to 1,000 episodes for sure. But I'm gonna start off doing Think and Grow Rich, at least 10 readings through, because if I can teach this book 10 times or read it out loud 10 times live, I think that would be a great start. Anyways, it is 10:06. I'm gonna get started. We are on page 268 for Think and Grow Rich. So one thing, if you guys really do dive into this book with me, I would suggest having it out with you, reading as I read, and then I'll pause, explain something a little bit deeper if it comes to me. However, today we are just talking about some stories instead of diving deep into like the facts about it. So we're gonna start off on page 268, and we're gonna start with the title "Why Men Seldom Succeed Before 40 Years Old." Okay, so I discovered from the analysis of over 25,000 people that men who succeed in an outstanding way seldom do so before the age of 40, and more often they do not strike their real pace until they are well beyond the age of 50. This fact was so astounding that it prompted me to go into the study of its cause most carefully, carrying the investigation over a period of more than 12 years. This study disclosed the fact that the major reason why the majority of men who succeed do not begin to do so before the age of 40 to 50 is their tendency to dissipate their energies through overindulgence in the physical expression of the emotion of sex. The majority of men never learn that the urge of sex has other possibilities, which far transcend in importance that of mere physical expression. The majority of those who make this discovery do so after having wasted many years at a period when the sex energy is at its height prior to the age of 45 to 50. This usually is followed by noteworthy achievement. The lives of many men, up to and sometimes well past the age of 40, reflect a continued dissipation of energies which could have been more profitably turned into better channels. Their finer and more powerful emotions are sown widely to the four winds. Out of this habit of the male grew the term sowing his wild oats. The desire for sexual expression is by far the strongest and most impelling of all the human emotions, and for this very reason, this desire, when harnessed and transmuted into action, other than that of physical expression, may raise one to the status of a genius. Okay, so here's that genius term again. He said, when this desire, when harnessed and transmuted into action other than that of physical expression, may raise one to the status of a genius. So, what does that mean when he says action? When it's harnessed and transmuted into action, what does that mean? Nah, how does it raise you to the status of a genius? That's what's on my mind right now. So, one of America's most able businessmen frankly admitted that his attractive secretary was responsible for most of the plans he created. He admitted that her presence lifted him to heights of creative imagination, such as he could experience under no other stimulus. One of the most successful men in America owes most of his success to the influence of a very charming young woman who has served as his source of inspiration for more than 12 years. Everyone knows the man to whom this reference is made, but not everyone knows the real source of his achievements. History is not lacking in examples of men who attained to the status of genii as a result of the use of artificial mind stimulants in the form of alcohol and narcotics. Edgar Allan Poe wrote The Raven while under the influence of liquor, quote, dreaming dreams that mortal never dared to dream before, unquote. James Whitcomb Riley did his best writing while under the influence of alcohol. Perhaps it was thus he saw the ordered intermingling of the real and the dream, the mill about the river and the mist above the stream. Robert Burns wrote best when intoxicated. For auld lang syne, my dear, we'll take a cup of kindness yet, and auld lang syne. But let it be remembered that many such men have destroyed themselves in the end. Nature has prepared her own potions with which men may safely stimulate their minds so they vibrate on a plane that enables them to tune in to fine and rare thoughts which come from no man knows where. No satisfactory substitute for nature's stimulants has ever been found. Okay, so he's saying in this paragraph that nature does provide us safely to stimulate our mind. So we vibrate on a plane of thought that allows us to really attract thoughts from God knows where. That's what he's saying. It is a fact well known to psychologists that there is a very close relationship between sex desires and spiritual urges, a fact which accounts for the peculiar behavior of people who participate in the orgies known as religious revivals, common among the primitive types. The world is ruled and the destiny of civilization is established by the human emotions. People are influenced in their actions not by reason so much as by feelings. The creative faculty of the mind is set into action entirely by emotions and not by cold reason. Okay, hear this out. He's saying the creative faculty of the mind is set into action by emotions and not cold reason. So, what is the creative faculty again? Remember in last episode, he said the creative faculty, or the creative imagination at least, is the sixth sense, and it's not set into action by cold reason, but rather it's really kicked off by emotions. The most powerful of all human emotions is that of sex. There are other mind stimulants. There are other mind stimulants, some of which have been listed, but none of them nor all of them combined can equal the driving power of sex. A mind stimulant is any influence which will either temporarily or permanently increase the vibrations of thought. So, this is what he is defining as a mind stimulant. It is any influence which will either temporarily or permanently increase the vibrations of thought. The 10 major stimulants described are those most commonly resorted to. Through these sources, one may commune with infinite intelligence or enter at will the storehouse of the subconscious mind, either one's own or that of another person, a procedure which is all there is of a genius. A teacher who has trained and directed the efforts of more than 30,000 salespeople made the astounding discovery that highly sexed men are the most efficient salesmen. The explanation is that the factor of personality known as personal magnetism is nothing more nor less than sex energy. Highly sexed people always have a plentiful supply of magnetism. Through cultivation and understanding, this vital force may be drawn upon and used to great advantage in the relationships between people. This energy may be communicated to others through the following media. 1. The handshake. The touch of the hand indicates instantly the presence of magnetism or the lack of it. 2. The tone of voice. Magnetism or sex energy is the factor with which the voice may be colored or made musical and charming. 3. Posture and carriage of the body. Highly sexed people move briskly and with grace and ease. 4. The vibrations of thought. Highly sexed people mix the emotion of sex with their thoughts or may do so at will, and in that way may influence those around them. And 5, body adornment. People who are highly sexed are usually very careful about their personal appearance. They usually select clothing of a style becoming to their personality, physique, complexion, etc. When employing salesmen, the more capable sales manager looks for the quality of personal magnetism as the first requirement of a salesman. People who lack sex energy will never become enthusiastic nor inspire others with enthusiasm. And enthusiasm is one of the most important requisites in salesmanship, no matter what one is selling. The public speaker, orator, preacher, lawyer, or salesman who is lacking in sex energy is a flop as far as being able to influence others is concerned. Couple with this the fact that most people can be influenced only through an appeal to their emotions, and you will understand the importance of sex energy as part of the salesman's native ability. Master salesmen attain the status of mastery in selling because they either consciously or unconsciously transmute the energy of sex into sales enthusiasm. In this statement may be found a very practical suggestion to the actual meaning of sex transmutation. The salesman, who knows how to take his mind off the subject of sex and direct it in a sales effort with as much enthusiasm and determination as he would apply to its original purpose, has acquired the art of sex transmutation, whether he knows it or not. The majority of salesmen who transmute their sex energy do so without being in the least aware of what they are doing or how they are doing it. Transmutation of sex energy calls for more willpower than the average person cares to use for this purpose. Those who find it difficult to summon willpower sufficient for transmutation may gradually acquire this ability. Through Though this requires willpower, the reward for the practice is more than worth the effort. The entire subject of sex is one with which the majority of people appear to be unpardonably ignorant. The urge of sex has been grossly misunderstood, slandered, and burlesqued by the ignorant and the evil minded for so long that the very word sex is seldom used in polite society. Men and women who are known to be blessed, yes, blessed with highly sex natures, are usually looked upon as being people who will bear watching. Instead of being called blessed, they are usually called cursed. Millions of people, even in this age of enlightenment, have inferiority complexes which they develop because of this false belief that a highly sex nature is a curse. These statements of the virtue of sex energy should not be construed as justification for the libertine. The emotion of sex is a virtue only when used intelligently and with discrimination. It may be misused, and often is, to such an extent that it debases instead of enriches both body and mind. The better use of this power is the burden of this chapter. It seemed quite significant to the author when he made the discovery that practically every great leader whom he had the privilege of analyzing was a man whose achievements was largely inspired by a woman. In many instances, the woman in the case was a modest, self denying wife of whom the public had heard but little or nothing. In a few instances, the source of inspiration has been traced to the other woman. Perhaps such cases may not be entirely unknown to you. Intemperance in sex habits is just as detrimental as intemperance in habits of drinking and eating. In this age in which we live, an age which began with the World War, intemperance in the habit of sex is common. This orgy of indulgence may account for the shortage of great leaders. No man can avail himself of the forces of his creative imagination while dissipating them. Man is the only creature on earth which violates nature's purpose in this concentration. Every other animal indulges in sex nature in moderation and with purpose which harmonizes with the laws of nature. Every other animal responds to the call of sex only in season. Man's inclination to declare open season. Every intelligent person is knows that stimulation in excess through alcoholic drink and narcotics is a form of intemperance which destroys the vital organs of the body, including the brain. Not every person knows, however, that overindulgence in sex expression may become a habit as destructive and detrimental to creative effort as narcotics or liquor. A sex madman is not essentially different than a dope madman. Both have lost control over their faculties of reason and willpower. Sexual overindulgence may not only destroy reason and willpower, but it may also lead to either temporary or permanent insanity. Many cases of hypochondria or imaginary illness grow out of the habits developed in ignorance of this true function of sex. From these brief references to the subject, it may be readily seen that ignorance on the subject of sex transmutation forces stupendous penalties under the ignorant upon the ignorant on the one hand, and withholds from them equally stupendous benefits on the other. Widespread ignorance on the subject of sex is due to the fact that the subject has been surrounded with mystery and beclouded by dark silence. The conspiracy of mystery and silence has had the same effect upon the minds of young people that the psychology of prohibition had. The result has been increased curiosity and desire to acquire more knowledge on this verboten subject. And to the shame of all lawmakers and most physicians, by training best qualified to educate youth on that subject, information has not been easily available. Seldom does an individual enter upon highly creative effort in any field of endeavor before the age of 40. The average man reaches the period of his greatest capacity to create between 40 and 60. These statements are based upon analysis of thousands of men and women who have been carefully observed. They should be encouraging to those who fail to arrive before the age of 40 and to those who become frightened at the approach of old age around the 40-year mark. The years between 40 and 50 are, as a rule, the most fruitful. Man should approach this age not with fear and trembling, but with hope and eager anticipation. If you want evidence that most men do not begin to do their best work before the age of 40, study the records of the most successful men known to the American people, and you will find it. Henry Ford had not hit his pace of achievement until he passed the age of 40. Andrew Carnegie was well past 40 before he began to reap the reward for his efforts. James J. Hill was still running a telegraph key at the age of 40. His stupendous achievement took place after that age. Biographies of American industrialists and financiers are filled with evidence that the period from 40 to 60 is the most productive age of man. Between the ages of 30 and 40, man begins to learn, if he ever learns, the art of sex transmutation. This discovery is generally accidental, and most often than otherwise, the man who makes it a totally unconscious of his discovery, he may observe that his powers of achievement have increased around the age of 35 to 40, but in most cases, he is not familiar with the cause of this change. That nature begins to harmonize the emotions of love and sex in the individual between the ages of 30 and 40, so that he may draw upon these great forces and apply them jointly as stimuli to action. Sex alone is a mighty urge to action, but its forces are like a cyclone. They are often uncontrollable. When the emotion of love begins to mix itself with the emotion of sex, the result is calmness of purpose, poise, accuracy of judgment, and balance. What person who has attained to the age of 40 is so unfortunate as to be unable to analyze these statements and corroborate them by his own experience? When driven by his desire to please a woman based solely upon the emotion of sex, a man may be and usually is capable of great achievement, but his actions may be disorganized, distorted, and totally destructive. When driven by his desire to please a woman based upon the motive of sex alone, a man may steal, cheat, and even commit murder. But when the emotion of love is mixed with the emotion of sex, that same man will guide his actions with more sanitary balance and reason. Criminologists have discovered that the most hardened criminals can be reformed through the influence of a woman's love. There is no record of a criminal having been reformed solely through the sex influence. These facts are well known, but their cause is not. Reformation comes, if at all, through the heart or the emotional side of man, not through his head or reason inside. I'm just going to look ahead, see how many more pages we got. This is one long chapter. Okay, so we got 278. We have 10 pages left almost. I'm going to pause right here and finish the last 10 tomorrow because it's not much. And so this is a little bit, I will say it's an uncomfortable chapter to read, talking about sex, but it's interesting to think that he's not really talking about like the physical side of having sex. He's talking about literally transmuting this power to stimulate your mind to a new level. And this level he actually calls a level of genius. And I thought that was pretty interesting. So I want to ask you guys right now, what is one thing you learned and one thing you liked about this? Why did he say that men rarely achieve anything of real greatness until they're 40 to 50? What was that reason that he said? I know it was read in the book and it could have been missed. I believe from what I've read that he said men barely achieve that level because in their youth, like most people in their 20s are so focused on, at least men at least, are so focused on chasing girls and just chasing tail pretty much and wasting all their energy on that. And then when they're 40 to 50 years old, they finally realize like, all right, like I got a wife now, I'm locked in. This is enough for me. And I'm going to focus my creative energy on like this directed action so that I'm actually achieving something that is worthwhile. That's what I'm getting from this chapter. And it is really interesting to think about that. Um, yeah, so let me know what you guys thought about this chapter, this mystery of sex transmutation. There is like that negative meaning to the word sex. However, it seems like it really can be a good thing. And it is a shame that I guess society sees it as a bad thing. And I guess part of that is like that mystery of it. Um, so it is really just how you take it. So I definitely want to thank you guys for listening to this reading. Some other thoughts that I've been having. I I'm doing this call every day, every weekday at least at 10 a.m. And if it changes, I'll let you guys know. But for right now, it's every day at 10 a.m. Weekends, I want to find a better time to do them. I'll let you guys know in the chat or in the Facebook community what time I want to do it in the weekends. I'm thinking like noon or 1 p.m. because I do value the weekends for just going out and getting things done. Um, anyways, yeah, that's it for this chapter. It was a little weird for me to read it, but I had to read it, and reading it out loud makes me understand it a little bit differently than when I read it to myself. So this is a chapter I am definitely curious of coming back to because like the question is now like, all right, like we're talking about sex transmutation. What does that mean? We got all this energy, and how do we actually transmute it to literally stimulate our minds and achieve the right actions that we need to achieve to get to the things we want, basically. There's a lot of questions that have arisen for me for this chapter. I think as I go through this reading again, I will create a workbook and just have a lot of questions for you guys to fill out um, as you go through something like this. So yeah, that is the chapter today on the mystery of sex transmutation. I want to thank you guys for watching. And until we meet again in time and space, I'll see you guys at the next event. Bye for now.